You might have heard the college football playoff is not expanding next year. They couldn't come to an agreement, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. I'm telling you, you got to go to on3.com and read our boy Brett McMurphy on this today. So eloquent. Oh, so poetic. And it made me smile the whole way through because for once in my life, when it comes to the college football playoff, at least temporarily, I feel like I'm getting what I want. It seems like most of you are getting what you want because I don't know very many people who wanted to expand this thing to 16, although some of you did. I don't know any of you who wanted to expand it to 24. So it's not expanding. And it's because really the parents are arguing. The SEC and the Big Ten are really at each other's throats right now. And through some very, very fancy maneuvering, i.e. threatening to leave a year ago, they got the whole system reworked to where they call the shots. And that works well as long as everyone is seeing eye to eye. But in a shocking turn of events, the SEC and the Big Ten are looking out for themselves more so than the greater interest of college football. Therefore, they're not seeing eye to eye. Now, what does all that mean as it relates to the playoff? Why isn't the playoff expanding? Well, I'm going to read you something in just a second. But essentially what we have here is we're sitting upstairs on the top step. It's after our bedtime. It's probably 9:15, 9:20 in the evening, and we're supposed to be tucked in. The door's supposed to be shut, and the parents are downstairs arguing. Now, normally when the parents are fighting, it's not a good thing for the kids. But sometimes when the parents are fighting, that means we can stay up late. Sometimes when the parents are fighting, we can pull out the Halloween candy and eat it in lieu of supper. Sometimes when the parents are fighting, you can just run video games until midnight. No one's really checking on you because they're preoccupied with fighting each other. And in college football terms, that just means one of them wants to expand to 16. One of them wants to expand to 24. They can't see eye to eye. They both have to sign off on any expansion plans. And so in the net, we just stay at 12. And that, although it sounds fake, really is how college football works right now. So here's the situation. Bradley, I want you to tee up this screenshot. I screenshot it just 5 minutes ago, past tense of screenshot. This is Brett McMurphy. You can read this entire piece, which I highly recommend, over on on3.com right now. But Brett McMurphy summarized it like this. I'm going to read this, and then I'm going to celebrate. The Big Ten wants a 24-team playoff. By the way, I'm going to editorialize throughout this because a 24-team playoff is one of the worst ideas in a long, long, sad history of bad ideas that this sport has had to deal with. But I digress. The Big Ten wants a 24-team playoff, which includes multiple automatic bids for the power leagues and the ability to stage play-in games. The SEC wants a 16-team playoff with 5 auto bids for the conference champs and 11 at-large bids. Here's a quote. The SEC and the Big Ten wrestled the power away, and they now have fumbled the opportunity to expand to 16 or more, a source said. Brett McMurphy continues, not that it matters, but the remaining 8 leagues also prefer the SEC's model, but they are the silent majority. Now think about that. Who should I really praise right now? On one hand, the Big Ten has one of the most god-awful ideas I've ever seen, but on the other hand, I also really don't even want it to expand to 16, so the Big Ten digging their heels in on their ridiculous 24-team model is the only thing that kept us from expanding to 16 teams, which is a little more palatable, but still unnecessary. Who should I be praising here? It turns out, with the backwards way college football works right now, the dude with the worst idea in the room, Tony Pate, is actually who got me what I wanted, which is nothing. I wanted the college football playoff to stay at 12 for a little while. We continue. The Big Ten and the SEC have absolute control over any playoff changes. Total control, no progress, fun times. And here's a final quote. I love the sources. Buddy, Brett McMurphy needs to hit me up. I would gladly go on record as saying what this anonymous source said. The quote is, they basically bullied their way into an agreement that provides them a lion's share of the revenue and the control of the format, and yet they can't work together because of their egos. Well, you know what? 3 cheers for egos right now. Because if that's what's keeping me at 12 teams, then that's what's keeping me at 12 teams. I'm happy about it. So the 12-team playoff has been around for a couple of cycles, and it really hasn't stayed the same because we had it the first go-around. Then we realized maybe we need to change the way the top 4 seeds work. And then we had this last round, and then we realized 2 G5 teams just made it. Probably need to fix that. And ironically, the answer was not in the playoff format. It was in conference championship tiebreakers. So anyway, now we enter year 3 of the 12-team model. And the great irony, whether in the Alanis Morissette version or the True Webster's version, is that we kind of got it worked out now. If you look at it and you look at the 12-team model, this upcoming year and beyond, however many years it exists, we're going to have what? The Power Four conference champs all get a seat at the table. And while everyone's going to yell, yeah, that just means Duke would have had a guaranteed spot last year. Yes, it does, but it's a moot point because closely followed is the fact that all of these conferences are going to fix their tiebreakers. So we're not going to have a world anymore where Duke, Virginia is your ACC championship game if the exact parameters exist that existed last year. So to be clear, what I mean by that moving forward is like the ACC's conference title game would have been what, Virginia and Miami, probably, Jesse? That's what it would have been moving forward. All you got to do is fix the tiebreakers. And the tiebreakers are this. Number one, head-to-head, which is always the number one tiebreaker. And then number two, instead of whatever calculus they had worked out on the back of a pizza box in the ACC, what you do is you just look at the playoff rankings. And at that point, it would have been Miami that goes to Charlotte to play Virginia. They would have body-bagged Virginia, zipped it up, tossed it to the side, and they would have been the ACC champ. And then you dust your hands off and you don't have two G5 teams in. So on the front of the G5, there's another little caveat that, again, these things keep getting leaked out because we can't just have one gigantic press conference where the playoff committee says, here's how it works. Instead, we just have to get Ross Dellinger writing articles every few weeks that, oh, by the way, did you know this? Did you know that? Here's one of the did you knows that, as far as I can tell, not many people knew until this past week. It's the highest ranked G5 team that gets the guaranteed spot this year and moving forward. Now, that's important because what that'll mean is if Tulane goes 10-2, but their two losses are like one conference game and then maybe they play Texas or someone like that, and some team from like a far lesser league goes 12-0 because they were favored by 10 plus in every one of their games. Quick 5-second timeout. Check and make sure you're subscribed to the channel. It keeps it free. We love you. All right, back to the show. Then Tulane's probably going to be ranked higher than that team. And since they're both G5 teams, Tulane would get the bid. So at least you're guaranteed you get the best of the G5 as the guaranteed G5 team. And the Notre Dame guarantee, I know that's drawn a lot of criticism. I'm not that worked up about it. I don't know what else to tell you. We can agree to disagree on that. I think most of the time it's going to work itself out where whether Notre Dame had the guarantee or not, the playoff field will probably look the same. So the one thing, if you read this Brett McMurphy piece that he started to talk about, he started to quote some people, and Rich Clark is one of them, who's the chair of the playoff committee right now, who is not in charge of making decisions, so I don't blame him for any of this. But he kept on saying things like, we'll stay at 12 teams as we assess the need to expand. My question is this. How do you know you need to expand? For the playoff expansionist crowd out there, or maybe the crowd who thinks, oh, we may need to expand it. How will you know when you need to expand? How do you know when playoff expansion is needed? In my opinion, it never was needed, but no one cares about my opinion apparently. So we're at 12 right now. How do you know you need to go to 16? Notice what I didn't ask. What I didn't ask is, how do you know whether you'll make more money going to 16? Everyone knows the bigger the playoff gets, the more money certain people make. Now, I don't, you don't, Bradley doesn't, but some people will certainly make more money if the playoff expands to 16. Actually, I take that back. Our show would make more money if the playoff expanded further, which is how you know I really mean what I say when I say I don't want the playoff to expand. I'm actually the only one pulling my pocket out and saying, look, Lent, that's a good thing. That's a very good thing. But forget about the financial piece for a second. Outside of money, I know this is a loaded second half of a question, but outside of money, how do you know when college football playoff expansion is needed? I just pause. I know there's no one really in the room with me here, but you may be listening, working out, you're on the treadmill, you're driving around town. I'm going to give you a little time to answer. You don't have to agree with me on this. Maybe you think it needs to expand. My simple question is, how do you know when? Or in Rich Clark's language, how are you assessing whether or not playoff expansion is needed? I think the most popular argument that I've heard has been, well, we know it's needed because Miami got in as the 10 seed and they went all the way to the national title game, which means if the 10 seed was capable of making a run to the title game, maybe Texas was capable. Maybe Vanderbilt was capable. Maybe Notre Dame was capable. And to that, I say, maybe they all were capable. But that's not what I asked. What I asked is, how do you know when playoff expansion is necessary? And those kinds of people would look at me and say, I just told you. I just answered the question. Well, that's where I think we just differ in opinion, which is fine. It's totally allowed at Pate State. We are a free ideas and free speech campus, even when it comes to college football playoff expansion. But I want to make my point pretty clear here. I think I've disagreed with Louis Riddick one time in my entire life. I want it to be the last time. But Louis Riddick and I disagree with this on Get Up a few weeks ago, because he made the point, we need to go to 16. And his reasoning was, Texas could have made a run here. Notre Dame could have made a run. Vanderbilt could have made a run. We need a playoff big enough for all the teams capable of making a run in the playoff to get in the playoff. I just fundamentally disagree with it. I do not think the size of the playoff should be, let's be sure it's big enough where all the teams who are capable of winning a title are in. I couldn't care less about what you're capable of. I care about what you earned. So Vanderbilt got left out. I'm not bothered by it, because they lost several games they could have won that would have gotten them in. Ditto for Texas. Hey, Miami got in this thing, and I thought they should have been in this thing. But if Miami had been left out and Notre Dame got in, I would have disagreed with it. I wouldn't have had a huge problem with it, because I always go back to the previous generation where we had 4, and I remember when we expanded to 12. Many of you may have said the same thing. We expanded from 4 to 12, and if you were on the fence, you said, hey, at least the debate is gone. Because now, we've been sitting here debating 4, 5, 6. Well, all of those teams will get in the new format, and I'll be you-know-what-it if I'm going to sit there and argue about 12, 13, 14. Well, here we are, arguing about 12, 13, 14. Scratch that. Here some people are arguing about 12, 13, 14. I will draw your attention to one more thing before I move on. Just to underline the mind-numbing hypocrisy of these people. I warned you this was coming. You can rewind to like 2021. I warned you this was coming. For a long time, the playoff expansion crowd used public opinion as a convenient bullet in the chamber of their argument. Do you hear anybody citing public opinion these days? Jesse, Mitch, since I just happen to have you in my eye line right here, has anyone lately heard anybody associated with playoff expansion talks cite public opinion? I have not heard Tony Pate or anyone from the Big Ten a single time talk about public opinion, because they used to all do it. Now, the reason I'm pointing this out is back when they expanded from 4 to 12, they were really quick to boom, 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 tap the nearest microphone and say, hey, we're doing this for the fans. Hey, overwhelming public sentiment says they want to expand from 4. They never cared what you thought. I said this at the time. People called BS on it, but I said at the time, they don't care. It's just convenient for them in the moment that you happen to agree with them. But your motivation as a fan for expanding from 4 to whatever was largely just you thought it would be better for the sport. You and I disagreed. We've gone over this many times, but that's okay. As long as you and I both want what's best for the sport, and you have one version of it and I have another version of it, at least our motivations are pure. Their motivation was never, here's what's best for the sport. Their motivation was, we got to make more money on this. If these people over here are convinced that what we want is best for the sport, then why should we be honest about our motivation? We'll just weaponize their motivation. We'll use that. We'll just astroturf this whole thing. Well, the reason I know they never cared is because they're advocating in some cases to go to 24 teams now, and there's not a whiff. There's not even the slightest whisper of public sentiment. I haven't heard anyone mention what fans want. You know why? Because fans know this sucks. Even the most ardent of expansionists, even the people that I argued till I was hoarse with 4 or 5 years ago are looking at this and saying, no, this sucks. I hate this. 24, that's not what I signed up for. What are we doing? What they're doing is what they were always doing. Well, at least trying to do. Except for we're not going anywhere for the time being. We at least get one more year. One more year in the sun.